My friends, let us pause and recognize that some days carry more weight than the turning of a calendar page. September 3rd, this Wednesday, is not merely another square marked with ink. It is a summons, a call to attention, a reminder that history and destiny often slip quietly into ordinary dates until someone is awake enough to see their significance. Greatness seldom announces itself with fanfare. It waits for hearts prepared to grasp its meaning. This day is not just given, it is entrusted. And how we respond will determine whether it becomes just another Wednesday, or the Wednesday that reshaped our story. On September 3rd, this Wednesday, lies a mystery most people will overlook. They will rise, wash their faces, hurry to their duties, and treat it like the repetition of all other days. Yet within the commonness of the calendar, there lies a hidden charge, a weight unseen by careless eyes. Great days do not always carry crowns or trumpets. More often, they arrive dressed in the garments of simplicity, as if to test whether we are still awake enough to recognize them. We deceive ourselves when we imagine that history is only written on battlefields or in marble halls. No, history is written in the folds of ordinary days, when choices are made that ripple through eternity. This is why September 3rd must not be treated lightly. It is not simply another Wednesday, for within it lies the seed of transformation. Consider how countless souls in the past have lived through mornings like this one, and did not realize until later that their decision that day altered not only their path, but the path of generations. There was once a soldier who awoke to the sound of a horn, weary from endless struggle, and he decided whether to march forward or to turn back. That choice determined whether freedom would endure or perish. There was once a teacher who stood before a classroom on what seemed like a quiet Wednesday, and chose to speak words that lit a fire in a young mind, a fire that later changed the world. There was once a mother who held her child closer on a day like this, deciding to protect hope against the storms of despair, and her courage became the soil from which greatness grew. None of them knew, at the time, that their Wednesday was a hinge on which destiny swung. September 3rd is such a hinge, a day that will carry the weight of unseen consequence. For most people, the temptation is to glide through life as though it were a chain of sameness, one day spilling lazily into the next. They assume that meaning only belongs to rare moments, to birthdays or anniversaries, or days marked red on a national calendar. But the truth is sharper. It is the so-called ordinary days that carry the fiercest test. If you can treat an unseen Wednesday as sacred, if you can awaken to the grandeur hidden in the common, then you are fit to bear greatness. September 3rd is proof of this, for it is not offered with glitter, but with silence. It does not shout, but it waits. And what it waits for is you. Imagine, for a moment, that your life is a vast book written not only for your own eyes, but for generations yet unborn. On every page, a date is written in the margin. Some dates to you feel more meaningful, but to the author of your story, no date is wasted, no date is without purpose. September 3rd is inked in with as much intentionality as the first breath you took. When the morning comes, it arrives with the weight of eternity disguised in the rhythm of clocks and bells. What you do with it is not trivial, though your heart may try to excuse itself. That is why this Wednesday is huge, not because the sky will part with thunder, but because it carries the eternal challenge: will you live awake, or will you stumble asleep? Think of the countless opportunities that vanish because we waited for a special day to act. How many times have we told ourselves, tomorrow I will begin, or someday I will rise to the occasion, only to find that tomorrow slid into yesterday, and the moment slipped like water through our hands. September 3rd is a rebuke to that slumbering spirit. It is a reminder that the moment to stand, to act, to love, to believe, is always now. When a Wednesday carries the potential to alter your life, it proves that no excuse remains. If Wednesday can be holy, then all days can be holy. If September 3rd can be huge, then so can every day entrusted to you. But here is the deeper truth. Significance does not lie in the day itself, but in what you allow the day to draw out of you. A date on the calendar is not destiny until a heart awakens to meet it. September 3rd may pass unnoticed for many, just as a diamond lying in the dirt may be kicked aside by a blind traveler. Yet for the one who bends low, who looks closer, who dares to recognize that eternity hides in the folds of time, September 3rd will never be forgotten. It will be the day you stopped waiting for the world to change and chose instead to change yourself. It will be the day when an ordinary morning was met with extraordinary courage. This is why I say that September 3rd is not only huge in history, but huge in the present moment. For you do not live in yesterday or tomorrow, you live in now. And now is the place where destiny breathes. What you choose to speak, whom you choose to forgive, what truth you choose to defend, what dream you choose to ignite, these are the decisions that swell a Wednesday into eternity. The tragedy is not that the day is too small. The tragedy is that too often we are too small to meet it. But this Wednesday calls you to grow, to stretch, to refuse the lie that life is a repetition of meaningless cycles. This Wednesday is alive with promise, and only those who awaken will see it. Do not think this call is abstract, as though it applies to others and not yourself. The significance of September 3rd rests not in headlines or global events alone, but in the secret chambers of your heart. Will you rise from bed with the posture of one called to a holy mission, or will you shrink into routine and let the day dissolve unnoticed? The choice is before you. The greatness of the day will not be measured by what the world says about it, but by whether you met it with courage, with faith, and with love. There comes a time when the slumbering strength of the human heart must be shaken awake, and September 3rd is such a time. For within every soul lies a courage that has been buried under layers of fear, doubt, and the dull weight of habit. We speak often of bravery as though it belonged to knights or soldiers alone, yet the truth is that courage is the inheritance of all. It is not always the roar of a battlefield. It is often the whisper that refuses to surrender, the steady hand that holds firm when all else trembles. This courage has been asleep in many of us, lulled into silence by the ease of distraction and the comfort of delay. Yet days like September 3rd are not given for sleep. They are alarms ringing in the spirit, calling us to rise, to act, to be more than shadows drifting through the passage of time. Consider how long the world has waited for men and women who will not flinch when tested, who will not disguise cowardice as wisdom, who will not cloak apathy as neutrality. Each generation is handed a moment when it must decide whether to shrink back or to awaken the courage within. The calendars of history are filled with such days, though few recognized them when they first dawned. September 3rd may seem small on the world's stage, yet it may become the very day when you face the quiet test: will you rise or will you sleep? The enormity of this question is hidden beneath the ordinary. That is how courage is always tested, not when the world expects it, but when the world assumes you will do nothing at all. The courage we speak of is not reckless impulse. It is not the arrogance of rushing forward for the sake of applause. It is the deep, rooted conviction that some truths are worth standing for, even if you stand alone. It is the fire that whispers, "Do not yield," when the easier path beckons. Most people wait for a great crisis to awaken their courage, yet courage is born in the daily refusals to bow to fear. When you tell the truth though it costs you comfort, when you forgive though your pride aches, when you step forward though trembling, these are the seeds of courage, and September 3rd is the soil where they must be planted. How many live their whole lives with greatness inside them, yet never stir it awake? They tell themselves that courage will arrive when needed, like a soldier appearing only on the battlefield. But the heart does not work this way. The courage that will hold you on the hardest days must be awakened on the quiet ones. If you wait until the storm rages, it will be too late to build your shelter. That is why days like this Wednesday are so massive, though they seem small. They are training grounds for the soul. To treat this day lightly is to waste the chance to grow the very strength you will one day desperately need. Do not mistake comfort for life, a life wrapped in fear, afraid to risk, afraid to speak, afraid to believe, is a half-lived life. September 3rd confronts you with the question of whether you will continue to drift, asleep to your own potential, or whether you will awaken. To awaken is costly. It means you will no longer have the luxury of hiding behind excuses. It means that when the opportunity arrives, you must seize it, even if your knees shake. It means you must rise from the bed of fear and walk into the unknown with nothing but faith in your heart. Yet, though it costs much, it gives infinitely more. For once courage is awakened, you begin to live as you were always meant to live. Not a shadow, but a flame. Think of the stories that stir our souls. They are not tales of those who lived in ease and never faced trial. They are the chronicles of men and women who were called beyond themselves and chose to answer. That same call echoes in this Wednesday. It does not matter whether the world hears it. What matters is whether you do. Will you awaken to the courage within you, or will you keep it buried beneath excuses, waiting for another day that may never come? The time to awaken is always now. September 3rd will come clothed in the ordinary, morning light, daily tasks, familiar sounds. But beneath its surface it holds a question as ancient as time itself. Are you awake, or are you asleep? The day does not ask for half measures. It does not permit delay. It is either the day when courage stirs within you, or the day when you smother it once again beneath layers of fear. That is why this Wednesday is not just a date. It is a summons, a trumpet call sounding in the depths of your soul. If you hear it, do not harden your heart. Rise, awaken, and let the courage long asleep finally breathe again. Every life reaches a crossroad where despair whispers one path and destiny beckons the other. And September 3rd is such a moment. Despair tells us that nothing will change, that the weight of our failures is too heavy, that tomorrow will only mirror yesterday. It seduces with its familiarity, convincing us that surrender is safer than hope. Yet destiny calls with a different voice, quieter but truer. It reminds us that no chain is unbreakable, no night eternal, no soul beyond the reach of transformation. On September 3rd, the struggle between these two voices will not be a grand spectacle for the world to witness, but an inner conflict, hidden from all eyes except your own. It is here, in the silence of your heart, that the greatest battle will be fought. Despair is cunning. It does not always shout its lies. Sometimes it comes clothed in reason, telling you that your dreams are unrealistic, that your sacrifices will not matter, that your strength has been wasted. It preys upon your exhaustion, magnifies your wounds, and insists that nothing good lies ahead. Many fall under its spell not because they are weak, but because they grow tired of resisting. And yet, the truth is that despair is always a deceiver. It offers the illusion of certainty. This is the end. Nothing will change. But it cannot see the hand of destiny, which often works quietly, unseen, in the background of what looks like defeat. Destiny, however, is never loud. It does not force itself upon you. It waits with patience, offering you the chance to take even the smallest step toward light. Destiny whispers not of ease, but of purpose. It calls you to believe that what you carry inside you was not placed there by accident. It urges you to look at your scars not as proof of weakness, but as evidence that you survived. On September 3rd, this quiet call will come. Perhaps it will come in a decision you must make, perhaps in a conversation, perhaps simply in the stillness, when you are tempted to give up. In that moment you will stand at the turning point. The danger is that despair often feels more real than destiny. Pain can be measured. Loss can be counted. Disappointment leaves visible marks. Destiny, on the other hand, asks you to trust in what is not yet visible, to hope in what cannot yet be held. That is why this Wednesday is so crucial. It is the day when you will be asked to choose not between two equal certainties, but between the heaviness of despair and the fragile, luminous promise of destiny. And though despair may feel heavier, it is destiny that is true. For despair belongs to the past, but destiny belongs to the future. Think of the countless souls who stood at such crossroads before you. A poet who considered laying down his pen forever, but instead chose to write one more line that changed the hearts of generations. A leader who nearly surrendered in exhaustion, but chose one more step forward, and that step became the march toward freedom. A broken soul who thought all was lost, but chose to breathe one more prayer, and in that breath found new strength. Their destinies were born in the moment they refused despair. September 3rd is no different. The page of history is waiting for your ink. Will it be the dark blot of surrender, or the steady stroke of hope? The struggle between despair and destiny is not fought once in a lifetime. It is fought repeatedly, often in the quiet spaces of ordinary days. That is why this Wednesday carries such weight. It is not about a single choice that ends all battles. It is about choosing, again and again, to believe that despair is not your master. It is about proving, to yourself and to the world, that destiny is worth fighting for even when it costs everything. Do not underestimate the gravity of this day. For some, it may appear like any other. But for you it may be the invisible hinge on which your story turns. This Wednesday may be the day when you finally decide to stop carrying despair like a cloak and instead lift your face toward the promise of what lies ahead. It may be the day when you look at your failures not as gravestones, but as stepping stones. It may be the day when the voice of destiny grows louder than the voice of despair. And though no one else may notice, the heavens themselves will know. For every time a soul chooses hope over surrender, eternity shifts. The turning point does not arrive with trumpets. It arrives in the quiet moment when you stand between despair and destiny, and you choose. September 3rd is that moment. It does not ask for perfection. It does not demand that you suddenly leap into triumph. It only asks that you do not surrender to despair, that you dare to believe there is still purpose ahead, that you take one more step toward the unseen future. There is a peculiar challenge given to every soul, to trust not only what the eyes can measure, but what the heart is called to believe. Faith in the unseen is not a luxury for dreamers. It is the very breath of endurance, the lifeline that carries us across the waters of uncertainty. September 3rd, this Wednesday, will not parade itself with undeniable signs. It will not lift its veil so clearly that no one can doubt. Instead, it will test you in silence, asking whether you will move forward without proof, whether you will step even when the path is misted, whether you will trust that purpose runs deeper than appearances. Most people crave certainty. They wish for visible evidence before they dare to act. They want guarantees before they commit, signs before they believe, victories before they risk. Yet the architecture of life is not built this way. If certainty preceded every decision, faith would have no meaning. What shapes the human spirit is not the ease of walking on a paved road, but the courage of stepping onto ground that has not yet revealed itself. That is why September 3rd is immense. It arrives as a quiet test. Not whether you can march when the banners are raised, but whether you can walk when the world seems asleep. Not whether you can sing when the crowd cheers, but whether you can whisper hope when no one listens. The unseen is not empty. Just because it lies beyond your vision does not mean it lies beyond reality. Think of roots hidden beneath the soil. You do not see their growth, Yet without them, the tree would collapse. Think of stars scattered across the heavens. To your naked eye, they may seem faint and small, yet each one burns with unimaginable fire, light years away. In the same way, what is unseen in your life may hold the greatest strength of all. The promises, the purposes, the unfolding of your story, they may be hidden now, but hidden does not mean absent. Hidden does not mean dead. Hidden often means in preparation. The test of this Wednesday is whether you will trust the roots before you see the fruit. There is a temptation to judge your life only by what is visible in the moment. The numbers, the achievements, the applause, the evidence others can tally. But the truest measures are invisible integrity that no one applauds, love that no one records, endurance that no one sees. These unseen virtues form the foundation of greatness, and on September 3rd, you will be asked not to prove yourself by what is obvious, but to strengthen what is hidden. The question will come. Will you still believe when no sign is given? Will you still move when no guarantee is promised? Will you still hold hope when nothing in your circumstances seems to justify it? History whispers to us of those who faced the same test. A leader who stood before his people with no assurance except conviction, yet because he believed, they found freedom. A pioneer who labored for years with no visible success, mocked for her persistence, yet her unseen work became the foundation for discovery. A wary parent who prayed and persevered though no immediate change appeared, yet in time their faith in the unseen bore fruit beyond measure. None of them knew in the moment how their story would unfold. What they knew was that unseen did not mean unreal, and so they chose to trust. Faith in the unseen does not promise the absence of fear. Fear will still whisper its threats. Doubt will still creep in with questions. The test is not whether you feel unshakable. The test is whether, despite trembling, you still choose to stand. This is the courage of faith. Not a blind leap into nothing, but a confident step into what is hidden yet certain. The human heart was not made to survive only on what it can see. It was made to live on promise, to hunger for purpose, to stretch beyond the veil of the present into the eternity beyond. That is why September 3rd matters so greatly. It is not a test of logic but of vision. Can you see with your heart what your eyes cannot yet confirm? Every soul will face moments when nothing looks promising. The bank account is empty, the doors are closed, the relationships are broken, the silence stretches on. In those moments, despair says, there is nothing here. But faith in the unseen whispers, look again. Roots are growing, foundations are forming. What you see is not all there is. That whisper may be all you have on September 3rd. No thunder, no miracle, no sign. Only the quiet assurance that what is unseen is as real as the ground beneath your feet. Whether you will believe it or not, that is the test. September 3rd will not announce its meaning with flashing lights. Its greatness will be hidden, just as all true greatness is. Yet it is in the hidden where souls are forged. It is in the unseen where strength is tested. And though no one may notice, though the world may pass by unaware, you will know that this Wednesday asked you to trust without sight, to walk without certainty, to believe without proof. That is why this day is not small, but vast beyond measure. There are moments when the weight of history rests quietly on the shoulders of an unsuspecting soul, and September 3rd is one such moment. We often imagine that history is written by kings, generals, and rulers, that it unfolds only in parliaments or on battlefields. Yet history is far more intimate, woven by the invisible threads of countless small choices. A word spoken in kindness, a truth defended in courage, a step taken in faith. These are the strokes that write the grand narrative of humanity. And so this Wednesday is not trivial. It is an invitation to recognize that your choices, however small they may appear, ripple outward into eternity, shaping the lives of others and the story of tomorrow. Most people underestimate the power of their decisions. They see themselves as too ordinary, their influence too minor, their actions too hidden to matter. But this is a deception, for the world has always been altered by those who did not appear great at the time. The choice of a single voice to speak when silence reigned. The choice of a single hand to extend forgiveness instead of vengeance. The choice of a single heart to hope when all around surrendered to despair. These were not made by the mighty of the earth, yet they altered the course of history more deeply than crowns or armies. September 3rd stands before you with the same truth. What you decide, how you live, what you choose to give or withhold, will shape not only your path, but the paths of many unseen. Every action carries consequence, though we pretend otherwise. We comfort ourselves by saying, "This choice is small. It will not matter." But this is the lie that lulls nations into decay and individuals into ruin. Every turning point in history began with what seemed a small decision. A betrayal hidden in the dark. A truth told in a quiet room. A dream pursued when the world mocked. The decisions seemed ordinary at the time, but they became the seed of revolutions, the foundation of nations, the spark of renewal. What you choose on September 3rd may appear private, unnoticed, unrecorded, but the unseen echoes of that choice will not fade. You will shape a tomorrow for yourself and for those who come after you. Responsibility is the burden and the glory of being human. To live as though your life is weightless, as though nothing you do matters, is to deny the dignity placed upon you. You are not a leaf blown aimlessly by the wind. You are a steward entrusted with influence. The words you speak may heal or wound. The choices you make may open doors or close them. The posture you take toward life may inspire or discourage countless others. September 3rd brings this truth into sharp relief. It is not a day to drift. It is a day that demands awareness. A day that demands you look at your choices not as isolated moments, but as seeds sown into the field of history. Consider for a moment the people whose choices shaped your own life. A parent who chose to protect instead of abandon. A teacher who chose to encourage instead of belittle. A friend who chose to stand with you instead of turning away. Their decisions may have seemed small at the time, but for you they were monumental. And just as their choices shaped you, so too will your choices shape someone else. You may never know who is watching, who is learning, who is strengthened by your courage or crushed by your silence. September 3rd will not ask whether you are famous or unknown, powerful or weak. It will ask only whether you recognize that your life touches others, and whether you will accept the responsibility of that touch. The temptation is always to delay responsibility, to say, "Tomorrow I will choose better," or "One day I will rise to the challenge." But tomorrow is never guaranteed, and one day never arrives. Responsibility always comes clothed in the present moment. That is why this Wednesday is not a rehearsal for some later performance. It is the stage itself. You will not be judged by what you intended one day to do, but by what you chose today. Responsibility is not measured in grand intentions, but in present obedience. This is why September 3rd is huge. It may appear as just another Wednesday, but within it lies choices that could alter generations. Perhaps the decision to forgive instead of hate. Perhaps the decision to endure instead of surrender. Perhaps the decision to speak the truth when silence would be easier. These choices may cost you comfort, they may cost you reputation, they may cost you ease, but they will give birth to something far greater, the shaping of a future where light overcomes darkness. Do not despise the day of small decisions. The great stories of humanity are filled with hidden moments that seemed insignificant until time revealed their weight. This Wednesday may be remembered by none but you, yet the unseen ripples will move through history. And so the question comes, will you take your responsibility seriously, or will you shrug it off as though your choices are too small to matter? There are days that feel like echoes of eternity breaking into the present moment, days when the veil between time and timelessness grows thin, and September 3rd is such a day. It does not announce itself with thunder or spectacle, but it whispers, and if you are quiet enough to listen, you will hear it, the call that this life is more than tasks and routines, more than deadlines and duties. Beneath the hum of the ordinary, eternity is speaking. The whisper says that your days are not a meaningless sequence but a sacred trust, each one carrying the weight of forever. This Wednesday will feel like any other to those who rush through it unaware. But to those who stop and listen, it will hum with the sound of eternity. Most people move too quickly to hear the whisper. They fill their hours with noise, with the clamor of work, with the distractions of entertainment, with the constant chase for something that feels important but dissolves like mist. The eternal voice is quiet, never shouting, never forcing itself. It waits for those willing to listen. September 3rd is not asking for grand gestures but for attention. It invites you to look beyond the surface of the ticking clock, beyond the tasks of the day, and see that you are standing on ground that touches the infinite. To miss that whisper is to miss the purpose of life itself. Eternity does not speak of endless time alone. It speaks of weight, of meaning, of permanence. When you hold a newborn child, you sense it. When you stand at the grave of one you love, you feel it. When you make a choice that costs you everything but saves your soul, you taste it. These are glimpses of forever woven into the fabric of now. September 3rd carries the same invitation. Though it is a Wednesday, though it may appear plain, it bears the voice of eternity saying, "Wake up. This moment is not small. This choice matters forever. This breath is holy." But the tragedy is that we treat eternal whispers as background noise. We hear them for a moment, but we drown them out with the urgency of temporary things. Yet eternity is patient. It does not rush. It knows its strength. Still, each time you ignore it, your heart grows duller, more deaf to its call. That is why this day is immense. It offers you the chance to hear again, to tune your soul to what outlasts time, to let the eternal reframe the temporary. September 3rd can be wasted as easily as any other day, but it can also become the threshold where you choose to live with eternity in view. Think of how eternity has touched ordinary days before. A traveler stopping to help a wounded stranger on the road, and that act of mercy becoming a story that reshaped the world. A widow giving a small coin, unnoticed by all except the eternal gaze, and her sacrifice echoing through centuries. A prisoner writing a letter in chains, unaware that his words would outlast empires. They were not aware of the scope of their actions in the moment, but eternity was whispering through them. September 3rd offers you the same possibility that in an act of faith, a decision of integrity, a moment of love, you might touch something that will never fade. To live with eternity in view is to live differently. You begin to measure success not by applause but by faithfulness, not by what fades but by what endures. You begin to speak words knowing they may outlast you, to love people knowing their souls are eternal, to make choices not for convenience but for truth. This is the whisper of September 3rd aid, to remember that your life is not confined to the short span between birth and death, but that every moment is set against the backdrop of forever. This Wednesday is not a trivial crossing of time. It is a point where eternity leans close and asks whether you will listen. The weight of eternity is not meant to crush you, but to awaken you. It reminds you that your struggles are not in vain, that your sacrifices are not wasted, that your choices carry significance beyond what you see. It tells you that pain will not have the final word, that joy is not an illusion, that truth will not be erased. It whispers that your story is part of something far greater than you can imagine. September